Hiya there, welcome to Love Solar Research and Development HQ. I'd just like to show you a few bits and pieces on our new double glass portrait panels. These are prototype panels we have here for you today. So the first thing I'd like to say is that this silver line won't be here. It'll be double black. So the frame system we've got here is almost exactly the same as it used to be if you've fitted our panels before. The difference that we have made is that we've made this overlap 50mm rather than 25mm. Now that lowers the possible roof angle to 5 degrees and gives a better waterproof seal. Because we've got this 50mm under seal here, on the top we've put a double rubber seal. So again, it just all improves the waterproofness, and the fittings still exactly the same. Another change for these panels is that they're now double glass. It increases the weight by about 3 kilograms, but it makes them a much stronger, durable panel. The only other slight change is in the portrait panels, and we've put a screw hole here. I'll talk you through that later, but basically that gets packed up and supported there. It's just to stop uplift and snow loading as well. I've laid out a panel and flashings for you to see, exploded style, like a Haynes manual. So I'll just talk you through a few pieces. This is your top mounting profile, which you couldn't quite see up there, but there it is. This is your top flashing. That's a top flashing connector. Then you have your corners, right and left. Continuing down, you have your left hand flashing, your right hand flashing. There's a bottom metal flashing here, and this is a connector for when you connect more than one panel together. Another new development we've come up with, which we're quite excited about actually, never mind, but this is flexible lead. So this is in place of your solid bottom flashing. So say installers have to go to site and then they rely on the roofers to put the bottom flashings in. That might not always happen. We've had this on site. So this we can put in place, it can be manipulated and left in, so the installer can do the whole job in one go. It's corrugated lead, it's very, very solid, it holds itself down. There's some adhesive tape on it. We'll go through the fixing of it later on, but it's great stuff. Continuing with your parts list, this is the bottom flexible corner flashing. This is that corrugated lead that I've just been talking about. That works in line with this bottom capping here. That's the connector for that bottom capping. You can use this bottom capping on tin roofs as well, just to close off the bottom here. That's the solid flashing, which you'll probably be familiar with. And the list of smaller parts, we have butyl tape. That's a packer for snow loading and uplift. These are the hooks for your bottom flashing. We have a 5 gauge 50mm screw, 25mm 4 gauge screw, which works with the side flashing clips here. And the only other parts are this pan head, Torx head screw there with a neoprene washer, and then you've got the expanding foam tape. The only other parts that we want to show you are these two flashings. There's an upper external right hand side and an upper external left hand side there. So I just thought I'd give you a brief outline of the tools you'll need. It's a very small toolkit. Most of them are pretty obvious. This will be getting sent out with the panels. It's basically a little bit of lubrication for the top of the panels where they meet, because we've got that double seal on and sometimes it just needs a bit more of a push. This is a guide stick that we use for setting out our lats. So if you want to make something similar on site, it's very beneficial to do so. So we'd like to demonstrate a 4-panel array on our roof. 2x2 portrait panels. We start off with the roofer doing his thing. He just lats the whole roof out and felts it as he deems fit, and we'll work in from there. So we always say for the roofers to felt and batten the roof as standard. Don't think about us, because we'll just fit in around his felt and batten. So we start with the roofer's spacing, which we can see here, and then we use a 50mm batten to space our first batten here. The reason we do that, on a tile roof particularly, is so that the roofer can get these nibs up nicely on there. The difference between a slate and a tile roof is that you don't need this gap. In that instance, we'll have this bottom mounting batten of ours tight onto this lat here, onto this batten here. On a slate roof, you don't need this gap here. Our bottom mounting batten can be tight down to this batten here. So the slate will just continue on as it should do from there. Right now we're just setting up for portrait panels on our test roof. The difference between the portrait and the landscape panels is that there is a mid-batten support here. So the measurements for the battens for this current panel are from the top to the mid is 795 centre to centre, and from the middle to the bottom is 965 centre to centre. If you're doing multiple rows of panels, we make a guide stick of some sort. Hopefully we'll be able to send something out with the panels that come to you. But I'd always recommend checking your panel sizes and the manual as well, because the panel sizes may change. When setting out the battens, always use a measurement of centre to centre, and that will give you the top to the top, or the bottom to the bottom, or the centre to centre. It'll give you an accurate measurement. You have to measure it that way out. Remember, don't measure battens internally, because the batten dimensions might change. Another thing to remember is that you have two battens here. The bottom batten will fix to every single spar with a screw. The top batten can be fixed every other spar with a screw. When you're putting these battens on of ours, the bottom batten can run as long as you like. It won't interfere with any of the roof. The top ones can be left long as well, because when we put the panels on, we'll cut them properly to size then. When setting out our roof, we'll have a string line along the top batten, and from that we'll come 90 degrees down the roof. Another good tip when we're laying out our roofs is you run a lat up there, and that gives you a nice straight edge to start from. We've just mounted the top profiles here, and I've really got to point this out because it's quite crucial. If you get these top profiles dead straight, we've got a string line set up here, or you can use a straight edge between them. Just make sure they are dead straight. Look along them at the end as well, because as soon as you get that nice and straight, the rest of the system goes in absolutely lovely. You can come across problems later on if you don't get that lovely and straight. When you come to fixing the top profiles, you'll find groups of 3 screw holes. In every group of 3, you need 2 screws. The reason being, we'll basically leave you a spare in case you hit a nail or anything like that. You can move that position around. If you just make sure at this point here that all your battens are cut to the edge of our framework here. A little tip on the end of your lats, just make sure you don't put a screw right here. I've done a sort of example here, but just make sure your screws are back here somewhere, because they could be a real pain. At this point, we're ready to install the top flashings. We always install from left to right. The whole system installs from left to right. So we start here, make sure that's nicely in line with your top profile. Also, you'll need some support under this point. We happen to have some there, but you might want to stick a batten in here just to support right along the top. There's a couple of options for fixing it down. We have used a sealer washer and a screw before, but we're thinking of moving over to a tech head, dome head, and a sealer washer. There's a top flashing connector here, and this obviously goes in this portion. We put 3 rows of butyl tape, 1 middle, 1 either side. I'm not going to stick it now because it really does stick quite hard, so I'll just show you how it installs. So the only piece of the top flashing that's left to fit are the top corners. We don't put them on right now, we wait till our first panel's in. Something else that's important to note with your first panel here is this point here. The panel wants to be 20mm away from the top mounting profile. That's to allow the side flashing to go up past here. So we've got everything in position. Now we're going to fix the panel down. So I've just tacked in a mid-panel support here. These are really important because the next panel will screw down onto that packer and it stops all the wind uplift and any snow loading. Another handy use we've found for these packers is to keep your cable out so you can actually get to it easily. Don't forget your cabling between the panels and also for your strings. Get it all set up before you start putting panels on. If you get it wrong or if you don't connect any panels, you'll have to have the whole system back off again. So do make sure that you get it right on your way. Now you're ready to put your top corner flashing in. You can put a strip of butyl tape on here. I know some people do, but to be honest, we don't think it needs it because you have a fix in here, a fix in here, and it's got 300mm of cover. So where the two flashings meet, I'm going to put another Tech screw into this latty. While I'm here, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the top flashings. These can go straight under a ridge as long as it's a dry ridge system, or of course you can slate or tile onto them. You've got quite a lot of flashing to slate or tile onto. As long as you have 100mm cover minimum onto this top flashing, that'll be fine. Also, there's a roofing manual going to be available quite soon. The roofing manual will have every different type of roof covering covered in it. So we're just in the process of making that, so it'll be coming out shortly for your roofers. So we always have our battens overshooting because we can cut them off afterwards, but mainly it's because when you put this screw in, it'll split the batten if you have it too short. But we won't screw it down tightly. We're just going to leave that until we've got this cut off and the flashing in. Also, you need to make sure this grey packer's in here when you screw this down. So now we can put the side flashing in. All these flashings go flush to the bottom of the panel and they overshoot at the top. Again, very important for this first flashing. That's why we have to overshoot at this point, so your flashing can go right up this channel underneath. So once this screws down in position, these panels are absolutely rock solid. Continuing down the left hand side, I'm just going to put a packer in at this midpoint. And again, loosely put this screw in. So this is your bottom left hand corner we're on now. We are putting in a lat behind here. This supports both your flexible flashing and your metal flashing. So pop a lat in behind there. And we put this in, and you want it 120mm down so it gets covered by the bottom flashing, and also 200mm from the very edge of the panel here. Also give this side a little turn over. Just give it a fold there and that'll stop water going out that way. So this is an example of if you're using the corrugated lead bottom flashing. All you need to do is come to the side here and the flashing will follow onto the next panel and lap over there. Again, for demonstration purposes, I just thought I'd show you the back of this. there's an adhesive tape. We're not going to use it because otherwise it will stick. There's one at the top, one at the bottom, so turn it over and into there. So that's the installation of the flexible bottom flashing. Everything grips in place really well. If you want to be really belt and braces, you could, before you slide this in, put a bead of silicone along it. We've found that they just don't fall out. One final detail in this capping here is a little end cap. If these do get lost, you can use one of the caps themselves or one of the joining strips and cut them down. And it just goes in very nicely. Like that.
Action.
We've made it down to the bottom corner now, and your last flashing's ready to go in. Just make sure this is dressed in nicely, with your fold still there. I'd just like to highlight the fact with all of these flashings, they're quite sharp, so do wear safety gloves. These portrait flashings are a little bit longer, obviously, than the landscape ones. So just take a bit more time, there's a little bit more friction to get them in place, but that's all, they'll go in well. So now we can fasten everything down. We use these stainless steel flashing clips. Something to bear in mind with these mid-panel supports, if you see there's not one in there, so that is a big problem. These are very crucial that they go in, so it's well worth getting your packer in there and this bolt in properly. Just set up an example of a problem that you might find when putting the central support screw in. Hopefully, yep, there's a screw in there, so all we have to do is back that out, and unfortunately this panel will have to come off, and then you'll have to take that screw out. Here's the trouble area where we had some problems putting in the mid-panel screw. So every time that you put this packer in, which is essential, just make sure there's no screws in this area. So we'll move that screw across here, and we're going to just make sure this is tacked in position with a screw. So that makes the middle of the panel very solid, and with the screw down through it there's no chance of wind uplift. That can take loads of snow, it'll be fine under any weight. So that's the mid-panel support system finished. Make sure this screw goes in nice and square, because everything's relying on the washer, which is great, but you just make sure that's seated properly. We've made it across to the right-hand side of our array, and we still need to put a mid-panel support in here. We'll cut these off square to the frame of the panel, but all we do here is hang this on a screw nice and square with the side, and that's not going anywhere. Then we cut these off nice and square. I'd just like to point out another possible pitfall. When you need to cut these off here, just be aware that there's not a screw here, because that again can be horrible. So as you're laying the array panel by panel, just make sure there's no screws that are going to interfere with your installation. So we're just preparing the bottom right hand side flashing with the flexible flashing. Make sure that you have a little piece of batten in here. It wants to cover at least 2 spars, and fix those in. And make sure that this is cut nice and flush with the frame of the panel, and then you'll be able to get everything in nicely. So now we've got the right hand bottom corner prepared for your flexible flashing. It needs to be 120 millimeters down from the bottom edge of the panel and 200 millimeters across from the side of the panel frame. Everything will be covered. Once you've got this flexible flashing positioned, we like to put a little fold there. That stops any water going out that way. And then just poke some screws through. We've got the bottom corner in now, so we're ready to put the side flashing on. These, sometimes, they might need a little bit of pulling or a little bit of light manipulation. I haven't done that with this yet. We'll see how it goes in. So get it nicely located where it should be. And then use something to take the blow. Oh yeah, that's going. With these side flashings, there's a lot of a longer flashing here, so they might need the same sort of method of tapping it into place. Keep it nice and level there, and that's all in place. So always work from the top up, and this is the final flashing distribution. So just make sure all these flashings connect properly and lap over the right way. And then it's 4 of these flashing clips per long flashing. Something for installers to bear in mind is when this is finished off here, really when that tile's in place, there's a little bit of a trough there. So we'd like you to take off the top edge of this tile just to smooth out that trough a little bit. You can see we've just taken that corner out of there. So now that'll sit there and smooth that right off so the water can fall off it very nicely. We're ready to fit the bottom flashing in now, and I'd just like to point out that we send out these clips with the kit. They're very similar to normal slate hole clips, but there's some obvious differences. There's a screw hole here, and the hook is slightly more curved over. So don't use normal hole clips for this job. You must use our own hole clips. 2 for each panel, and they just fix in with the hook facing up. When you've got your hole clips in, they sit just like that. Everything sits over the tile, ready to take our bottom flashing. So now we have all of our bottom flashing hooks in place, and we've mocked up some tile for you to see. So what we'd do when we leave an installation is just slip that into place so it stays out of the way, and you're relying then on the roofers to finish their slating, tiling, and put the hooks on. That's very important. Start by locating that far corner here, and then you need a joiner plate. There's no need for any butyl tape on this because all the water's falling off it. It's great to have another pair of hands while you're doing this. We'll send one of these tools with your clips, but also you can use a pair of pliers. I'd just like to show you this new bottom flashing that we're using. The reason that we are using it is you can install it as an installer and leave it to the roofers then. So it is lead, it's just corrugated lead, so they can treat it exactly like lead, fold it up, do their work, and fold it back down with the sticky strip here. One of the benefits of this corrugated lead is that it won't run, you don't need to oil it, and it'll stay down just like lead. It's just as heavy, and it'll stay where you want it to stay. I'd just like to show you this alternative to installing the bottom corrugated flashing. This is going to come with pre-stuck with the butyl tape along it, and that adheres to the slate along here. Really we want 100 millimeters under the panel, so we've put in an extra batten here, an extra double batten, so that's where we're going to fix it onto. The main reason for the 100 mil cover here is for this flashing here, so that everything flows off here nicely. We just put that in with a couple of tacks, and then your panels will go on top of that. So that's the installation of the bottom rapid flashing, the lead flashing. You just go back in with your screws again, dress this down, take the sticky tape off, dress that down, and it covers the screw holes by a good 60 mils, so you've got a good 70-80 mil of cover onto the tile there. The last thing to do now is put this capping strip in. We tend to give it a little bit of a stretch outwards, so it makes for a nice tight fit. Also there's this corner piece which goes in before you install, and we just squeeze it into place. I just wanted to show you here an external right hand side corner. Basically it's in case you have potentially a chimney or again a roof light window up here, and you need to miss this panel out. You need a top profile fitting to take this panel. It's a slightly shorter top profile. It'll be shorter by 20 mil. That's just to allow for this channel here. So keep your eye out for that. The position of this top profile here, there's two ways you can find it. If you look along the back of the panel previous, you just line up through there, or there's a measurement, 1735 for these panels, from the very top rail to the top here. That's your centre to centre measurement if you like. As another guide to the position of this top rail, if the very bottom edge here matches the bottom edge of your solar panel previous, that works as well. So for this corner here, we've put in another lat, and that's to support this flashing here. It gives it a lot of extra strength. We've knocked a section of this top curl down, and that's to allow this side flashing to go over it. Then we put some butyl tape here, just where the joins are, and it keeps everything nice and tight. The lat here wants to be 300 from the top of your panel, and that will support all this. Just to reiterate, in this external corner you need a short mounting profile to the top of this panel, and also you need a short mounting profile to the top of this panel, because the side flashings need to go past that. This side flashing fits exactly the same as all the other ones. It has a different profile at the bottom, but you put it in and you put on these clips, 3 to 4 per side flashing. So on this corner here, this is quite important. You need a shorter top mounting profile. The reason being is that we need this flashing to come past this point here. So there's a gap there, and there's a 2 centimetre gap at this side as well for the same reason. So again, with this top flashing here, we've got a support lat in behind, and then I've put some butyl tape here where the join is. That will slide down over there, and that's it fixed in. Continue that 2 centimetre gap with your top flashing here, because again this flashing has to come past it. So in this instance, because I didn't have any latch showing, I've gone straight in through this top flashing. That's all going to be covered by tile or slate, so we're all good. I'd just like to show you how we work out an internal corner. So if you imagine the panel's in here, and there could be something like a window here or a vent here, so we need to miss this panel out. Basically, we need to take a little piece of this batten here out. The flashing, the side flashing, is 150 millimeters wide, so we're going to cut from the very edge of the panel to 170 millimeters for a little bit of wiggle room. We've got a screw in here, so I'm going to remove that screw, move it along, and then take this section out. So we've taken out this part of the batten here, and that's only to allow an ordinary side flashing to go up here. If anybody's fitted this before, this is a relatively new development. We've simplified it a lot. There used to be 3-4 pieces in this corner just to waterproof the corner, and we decided that a side flashing would be ample. It gives you 120 mil cover here, and then with a bit of expanding foam tape, well, there is no corner really. So that's eliminated that problem. So we just cut a small section of this and put it in this joint here, just to stop any wind blown water. We've put in an extra screw hole and a countersink here. For the time being, with this model of panels, because we've just developed this, we have to put in an extra screw hole for 2 fixings. In the future there'll be more fixings along the bottom rail, so that'll give you more flexibility. So this is exactly the same bottom flashing. You'll have your hooks in here, and basically this is just for demonstration to show you how it covers. It covers really nicely there. So the last part of the side flashing installation is another length of expanding foam tape. We run this down here primarily for tiles, to be honest, but slates could take it as well. So run this down here, and that will allow your roofers to get a nice seal on here. Depending where your slate or tile finishes, that will be where this tape goes, as long as it's covered by the slate or the tile. We try to ask our roofers to fit this because it does expand once you take it off the roll, and also they are the ones responsible for roofing this over, so we ask them to do it. This is an ordinary corner we've created here, and obviously we've missed a panel out here, so that's the corner that we're looking at. All you do to finish it off is take the nibs off one side of this. That'll hang in there and sit on the foam tape with a nail through here. The roofer will have to put in an extra batten here to hang his first course of slate off, so make sure you speak to him about that. And after that, you just install the bottom flashing. So this is the flexible flashing option, the lead flashing option. I just wanted to show you that in an internal corner as well. Same as before, it goes into the bottom section here, and then this capping strip covers it and nips it in place. So we're going to display a left-hand internal corner here. Really you want your panel in place. It's easier because you know exactly where that's coming to. And you want to again take out 170 millimeters of this second lat here. The best way we found of doing it is put your panel in place, then take the screws back out and have a friend lift it up for you, and you can take that out very easily and then just drop it where it should be. If you can think of any better way, please write in and tell us. At the moment, again, because we need 2 fixings in this bottom corner here, we're going to put an additional screw hole in. There's a line there for you to drill into, So you can just pop an extra screw hole in there. And just remember to countersink that as well. On this left-hand corner, we've got up to the same place as we had with the other one. We've taken out 170mm from your second batten here, and the side flashing has slid up past there. It's gone 120mm under there. We've got expanding foam tape to seal that gap, and then this is the expanding foam tape to take the tile. The other important thing is that there has to be a batten placed in here in order to take your first course of slate. So we've got all this corner ready now, and we've got a first course of tile in there. Don't forget to put your flashing hooks in here to catch this flashing. I'm just showing you this as an example. I just also wanted to show you our corrugated lead in there. There's a bottom flashing. You just dress that down and that'll sit there really nicely. The lead works in partnership with this bottom capping strip here, so that keeps it all in place. These panels come fitted with 2 storm seals here. What we're suggesting is that these are for pitches below 10 degrees, keeping a double storm seal. If it's a normal roof, 30, 35 plus degrees, we're suggesting that you remove the top strip because it makes it very difficult to get in there, into the top mounting profile. If you do have problems getting into the top mounting profile, we've been using fairy liquid water solution, and that allows it just to slide in the first instance.